In nearly 4 decades of prosecutorial service in this state, I have never seen fraud of this magnitude. Hi, I'm Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle Now. And Bill, those are the words of Kern County District Attorney Cynthia Zimmer, who's remarking on a fraud scheme that stole at least $140 million, possibly $1 billion from the state of California by inmates in prisons being issued checks for unemployment, usually and frankly always with cooperation of somebody on the outside. Thousands of prisoners' names were issued unemployment checks, including 158 claims in the name of 133 death row inmates, rapists, child molesters, violent offenders of various kinds. And Bill, the 9 district attorneys have written a letter to California Governor Gavin Newsom saying that he needs to personally step in. Newsom himself says that earlier this year, he was made aware of the problem and says this, he set up a task force and, quote, while we have made improvements, we need to do more. Bill, you live in California. I suppose corruption in California doesn't surprise you, but the magnitude of this one surprises even hardened prosecutors.
Well, she may have her horizons expanded in the next several days in terms of the largest fraud she's ever seen, but that's a different story. I am detecting levels of rage against Gavin Newsom that I have never seen for any other political candidate ever in this country. It's beyond the fact that he's an utter catastrophe. The fact that, I mean, and it's not a coincidence that he's Nancy Pelosi's nephew either, right? I mean, Nancy Pelosi goes to get her hair done, doesn't wear a mask. Gavin Newsom has a dinner, $300-400 a plate, shoulder to shoulder with medical experts. No one's wearing a mask. And when he's caught on it, he says, oh, well, no, we observed social distancing. And then when somebody provides a photograph, then he has the audacity to get up there with a big grin and say, hey, that was a mistake on my part. I should have just gotten in. When I saw everybody was inside the building not wearing masks, I should have just gotten in my car and turned around. But I didn't, and that was a mistake on my part. Meanwhile, businesses close everywhere, and people are told they can't go to have Thanksgiving. They can't sit at a restaurant, can't do anything. And so he's appointed a task force to look into this. Well, that's just great. I don't imagine that task force is going to be doing an awful lot of deep digging, because the idea that this is something that could have been overlooked and completely undetected by competent and trustworthy public officials is stretching the imagination quite a bit. So when he says he's going to appoint a task force, he's going to appoint a task force into something that he's known has been going on. And if he didn't know that it was going on, as governor of the state, he should have known it was going on.
There was, they were tapping the phones, basically. They were listening to prisoner phone calls. Prosecutors say that they heard prisoners talking with people on the outside about how easy it was to get paid through this kind of a scam. They use real names, they use fake names, in some cases fake Social Security numbers. In fact, Sacramento County DA Anne Marie Schubert says, quite frankly, the inmates are mocking us. And what she's referring to is one inmate who filed a claim and said his name was Poopy Britches.
Have they checked the voter rolls for a Poopy Britches?
Well, see, that's the problem. They didn't check the rolls of people who were inmates, as many states do before issuing those kind of things.
I'm curious to know if Poopy Britches is on the voter rolls in Kern County or anywhere else.
And does he have a political affiliation?
Oh, I got a pretty good idea what his political affiliation is. When
it could be his rap name, he may have.
Yeah, Lil P is that's his street name. Again, if the standards and the safeguards for something this brazen are so ineffectively applied. You have to ask yourself if they're applied at all. And the answer is no, there's no reasonable explanation that these safeguards have been applied. They're clearly being looked the other way. And I do find it remarkable, really remarkably ironic that a woman, that a district attorney could say something like that and talk about how easy it was to provide fake addresses, fake names, fake identities, and issue money to those people for years, if not decades, and then claim that the California election and all the other elections are airtight in terms of security. This is a great example, a perfect example of how widespread and deep the corruption is. And actually, to be honest with you, it doesn't have to be particularly widespread, just has to be focused. And when you live in a world where your job in the government is determined, and the head of the government in the state of California does things like lock down everybody else's wineries, but keeps his own open, and does all the other things to indicate to people that he is not only above the law, but he's laughing at you for being above the law and for you taking it. You begin to get into that situation, kind of sometimes people call the chump scenario, where it's like if you're doing the right thing and you're playing by the rules and everybody else is getting rich and you're not, it's not even a question of ethics anymore. Now you just feel like an idiot. And I suspect that's exactly what's going on. But again, I wonder how many people in California are going to accept this fact and fail to make the connection between the lack of oversight and security necessary for convicted felons to receive my personal check. I write a check for them. Actually, so do you. If you're a member at BillWhittle.com, you'll be pleased to know that your membership money to some degree has been going to give money to felons in prison, because this is a California-based operation. We pay California-based income tax, and that money is now in the pockets of poopy britches. And that is something that should enrage everybody. It enrages me. But distinctly doesn't appear to enrage many of the people that have come to accept this as just business as usual.
So you'll be comforted to know that the Employment Development Department has sent forth its spokesperson to say that they've been working with the Department of Labor's Office of Inspector General, cross-checking claims of inmates. And here's the quote, and I just would like your reaction to this. We're pursuing how to integrate such cross matches, meaning cross-checking the list of inmates with a list of recipients of unemployment checks, pursuing how to integrate such cross matches moving forward as part of enhanced prevention efforts during this unprecedented time of pandemic-related unemployment fraud.
Of course.
Hang on a second. Pandemic-related unemployment fraud across the country.
Yeah. All those businesses that are waiting for their relief checks because their businesses were arbitrarily shut down by a state government that has no factual basis in evidence. We talked about during this entire pandemic, we talked about how they're constantly moving the goalposts, or that they haven't made clear what the goalposts are. In other words, at what point do we come out of these restrictions? They've never said so. And then I just suddenly realized not too long ago that it's not a question of them moving the goalposts, and it's not a question of them not telling you where the goalposts are. There are no goalposts. The whole idea is absurd. They're going to keep doing it until they do it. Of course, it's a result of the epidemic. And furthermore, if you think that this is going to change anything, the only thing that is going to change things is to put the people on the outside of the prison that made this possible on the inside of the prison with the rest of their co-conspirators. And when that happens, you might start to see a reduction in this kind of fraud. But did Gavin Newsom talk about, my God, this is a terrible crime and we're going to look into this and the people responsible are going for jail? Of course he didn't say that.
Well, some people are going to jail, and he said that this was an unacceptable failure.
There was,
by the way, one address in Kern County that was receiving payments for 16 inmates. I thought it interesting, Bill, in that quote, though, from the Development Employment Development Office. Isn't that usually just the unemployment office? Anyway, they not only did they say it's not our fault, it's the pandemic, but they also said, well, it's happening everywhere. So they basically said, don't look at me. It's the pandemic's fault, and everybody else is doing it too.
And people have trouble believing. People say that people who say that people like me, who think that this is the way that the state governments in democratically run states do business, are somehow lunatics and crackpots for having the temerity to doubt the integrity of election results. When in point of fact, when you get caught red-handed with the checks in hand, you've got the actual evidence. The response is, well, this is a terrible lack of oversight, and we need to appoint a task force. And by the way, it's not our fault; it's COVID's fault. And not only that, but everybody's doing it. That's the attitude of government officials. That's the attitude of people who are employed in the government of California. That's their attitude on record from the quote you've just given. And that attitude does not stop at prisons, and it doesn't stop with the EDD. That attitude is throughout everything in the entire state and throughout every other democratically controlled state. It is a get rich slowly scheme, but it is nevertheless fraud. It's not just fraud, it's theft. They're taking money away from me and from the people who deserve it, and the small businesses that are closing by the hundreds every day. And it's going to these people, because this is how you oil the machine. If you don't get any money for your graft, then there's no point in being in running the graft in the first place. You have to make some money off of it, or else what's the point? If you're going to allow an inmate to smuggle a file into a cell, you don't do that for nothing. You know, the reason you allow somebody to do that is because they slipped you $100. That's how this thing works. Everybody knows it's how it works. It's evidence of not even corruption anymore. It's like corruption. Corruption indicates a spot of damage on a otherwise clean surface. This is way past corruption now. This is just business as usual. This is just how it's done. And this is how it's done, and it's how it's always been done. And this, you know, when you have something of this scale, something this big, this massive, I think you need to get on the phone and call in the FBI. Oh, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are grateful for the members at BillWhittle.com who have made this program possible. And I know it's small comfort to you, but as Bill mentioned, yes, some of your dollars are going to California and helping to fund this stuff. But it's not just your dollars. It's everybody in the country, because everybody who pays federal taxes also contributes to California. So,
by the way,
as the spokesman said, everybody's doing it.
Yeah. By the way, if you didn't know this, if you live in Tennessee, let's say, and you play professional football for the Tennessee Titans, and you play a game in Los Angeles against the Los Angeles Rams or the Chargers or whatever, the state of California will take income tax from you as a football player, prorated for the total number of games in the season, and they will take that money from you with your residence in Tennessee because you did that work in California. And in New York, the people who came to provide emergency rescue services during the first days of the COVID pandemic were thanked by the government and then presented with a bill for the state income tax for the work that they did while trying to save lives in New York. And those are true stories.
Which is why I'm not a professional football player or a doctor. Thank you very much for providing support for this enterprise. If you're not a member yet, you can go to BillWhittle.com and click that big green button to become a member. Or if you'd like to make a one-time donation, the big blue button will take care of that. For Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks for watching.